What act did Malcador commit that enraged Horus? How did Horus fare against the Sigillite? What does this tell us about the lost primarchs? Friends, let's find out, and welcome to another 40k video. We draw on the last council by L.J. Goulding for this video. Malcador is attending a council of the High Lords of Terror, and he's interrupted by Horus, Alpharius and Jagatai. Malcador asks why the Warhawk is there, and he says, "My brother calls and I answer," leaning casually against a marble pillar. "It is the way you made us, no?" Horus makes another demand for an answer. "I presume," he said carefully, "that you refer to the work being undertaken in the investory." Horus glowered. "You know I do. This is an insult. Did you think we would let this pass unremarked? My remaining brothers and I? You overstep your authority, old man. You cannot simply undo history as suits your secretive whims. When my father hears of this, he will." "What makes you think that the Emperor is unaware of this matter?" Malcador interrupted. "That the order not comes from his lips, and that I am merely acting as his loyal servant. I am standing here before you, uncle. Please do not lie to my face. Alpharius has shown me all I need to see. To know that you and your accomplices have taken great pains to hide this from the War Council and the rest of the Imperium. That does not sound to me like the actions of loyal servants. If I did not know better, I would say they sound like those of ambitious, dishonest men who know that their position within the hierarchy is uncertain at best and more likely redundant as time moves on." And Horus goes on to demand by what right is one of the 20 statues to the primarchs in the investory going to be removed. Sigillite chuckles in reply. "Do you fight to bring the galaxy to compliance, Horus, because you seek glory and recognition? Or do you have it because it is your duty, the task given to you by your father, whom you love above all else? If the price of your loyalty is only a few hundred tons of white marble and a little fanfare, then what glory have the legions earned truly? We come here as friends in search of truth and understanding, and yet you heap more insults upon us," he rumbled, shoving a heavy wooden chair aside like a child's plaything, and kind of acting like a child as well. "Not content with striking one of my brothers from the pages of history, now you dare to question our place in my father's great vision altogether? If you were me, Sigillite, how would you react? You know full well that Alpharius, Jagatai and I could crush you and every one of your fellow conspirators. And I think personally that they underestimate Malcador here." "True enough, I expect," Malcador says, "but is that how you would have others know you, as the mighty lords of war, able to strike down any who question their right to rule over lesser men?" "But dear uncle," the primarch whispered, "that is what we are." Malcador here identifies the Chthonian hubris, the gangland pride that Horus carries. "Horus, Lord and Commander of the 16th Lunar Wolves, may I present the Honourable Nar Baron Petronius Vivar of Count Carpinus," the Sigillite says. Horus recognises this man's history in helping his father, and the records written by this man's family taught him how his father fought during the Unification Wars, but he will not be distracted by this man, and says so to Malcador. Horus says the history of the Imperium is not something that can be amended. We will not allow it. He goes on to say, "But to deny that they ever existed, to openly dishonour the memory of our fallen brother, what gives you the right to decide that in secret behind closed doors?" Malcador glares at him in reply. "Do not speak to me of secrets. You are playing a dangerous game, the three of you, and my patience grows thin. While our great emperor is absent from the throne world, I carry his authority, and I act in his name. We here, we lords and ladies of terror, have given the matter adequate deliberation, and decided that a tribute to a fallen and disgraced primarch is not a monument worthy of the investory. The statue will be removed, the marble pulverized and used to line the paths of the state gardens in the inner palace." "Not worthy," Horus growled. Malcador leaned against the throne's carven back. "If you cannot see the reasoning behind this decision, then you only convince me further that it is the right one, and that there is nothing more to discuss. Pray, return to your legions. The Imperium needs victories more than ever. Let these past failures lie." Quite unexpectedly, Horus laughed, long and loud. "You can't even say it, can you?" he said incredulously. "You can't even say his name." "Do not speak it," Malcador thundered, loading the words with psychic force that struck the primarch's mind like a hammer to the forehead. Horus reeled, blinking away the pain. His brothers too seemed to feel the blow, along with every mortal still in the chamber. Even the Sigilite's own ears rang, but he kept his voice firm and unwavering, really showing his maturity here. "This was your father's command, boy, and you all..." The primarch gave a grin. "My brother's name was..." Faster than human thought, Malcador's empty hand snapped up into an arcane gesture long forgotten by any other living soul on Terra. "Silence!" Horus froze, his limbs locked fast within his armour. He shuddered uncontrollably, pressure building in his muscles as he fought against it. Slowly, Malcador stood, holding the primarch in place with the power of his mind, and nothing more. The Khan sprang towards the centre of the room. "Lord Regent," he urged, holding out his open hands. "You must release him, please. He speaks from grief, and the shame we all share." The air around them thrummed with invisible energy. Malcador could still see that hateful, defiant pride shining through in Horus's palsied gaze. "You're not ready for the future you crave," he hissed. "None of you are." He forced Horus down onto his knees. The stricken primarch choked. The Sigilite's face twisted into a vengeful rictus. He felt the old, familiar rage beginning to stir deep in his undying soul. "Enough! You will be silent, or I will unmake you here and now." That's an interesting thing. Perhaps he had some role with their creation, a mix of human technology and chaos magic. He could certainly do the psyche side of things. Horus's windpipe closed with a sickly crack. His right eye bloomed red as a blood vessel burst in the sclera. But still, he would not relent. So defiant, so ungrateful, Alpharius took an uncertain step back. "Stop, Lord Regent, stop, you will kill him." Tiny crawling motes of light began to creep in at the edges of Malcador's vision. He could feel heat building within his ancient bones, stinging at the meat of his flesh. The stench of burning hair rose in his nostrils. "Sigilite!" bellowed the Khan. And in an instant it was over, and Malcador released Horus. I'm not sure how much longer Malcador could have held him against the power within the primarch's body. The primarch crashed to the tiled floor, convulsing, almost gagging on rough lungfuls of air. Alpharius rushed to his side. "Breathe, brother, just breathe." With his heartbeat pounding inside his skull, Malcador gripped the cold iron of his staff. He felt like a drowning man clinging to the last slippery lifeline he could find. "You will be the death of me," he gasped. "You and all your princeling brothers. There are things in this galaxy that you do not know, simply because you do not need to. And the knowledge of that just eats away your hearts, doesn't it?" Still trembling, Horus found his feet. Malcador continued, "You cannot see what we have done for you because you focus too much on what more you think you deserve. You have no earthly concept of what has been sacrificed, just so that you may ascend." Horus's hand closed around the grip of his sword, sheathed at his side. Its quillions were rendering as the winds of the Aquila, gleaming gold with all the seeing eye of terror between them. "And this," said Malcador, "this is why mankind cannot be ruled by post-humans. Your concerns are not those of ordinary men who must eat and sleep and love and fear, and ultimately die, all without ever knowing the kind of immortality you so crave. If you cannot see this, then you are all proof of my point. You are all the proof I need." The blaze energy field activated as it left the scabbard. The Khan shook his head. "Peace, brother. Consider where you stand." But Horus' expression was dark. He glared down at the frail old man before him. Then he raised his sword high and drove it into the surface of the table. The tip speared right down through the petrified wood, sticking fast in the floor beneath it, and he left it quivering in place. "I defy you," Horus spat at the Sigilite. "You and this shadow council of bureaucrats. Your kind is not fit to rule anything. An imperium ruled by men would be exactly what your father intended," Malcador interrupted. "Leave this place, Horus. Return to your crusading and bloodshed, that which you love so much. You will have your moment of glory, I promise you that." And he goes. Then later, when the heresy is happening, the Council of Terror is replaced by a war council. And Malcador promises that the Lords of Terror will have their power given back once the war is over. So despite what he says to Horus there, it is given over, the power is given over to some of the primarchs later in the heresy. Anyway friends, on that note, I'll wrap up today's video. I love the bit where the Sigilite holds Horus in place and humiliates him because you've seen being such a brat earlier in the story. And this is quite an interesting insight into Horus, how he sees things. Now extend that through into the Horus here. I think you can see a connection there. Any thoughts of your own? Well, let me know about them.